This is a question that I get all the time from people who have either never been to Mexico before or have been to Mexico and have had Moctezuma's revenge, traveler's diarrhea, Bali belly, whatever you'd like to call it. It's a problem with visiting new places because there's different bacteria, perhaps there's different foods, there's different things in the water. Like, it's not necessarily the fact that you're having something that's toxic, it's that you're having something that your body's not used to. So this can happen from any number of things. It doesn't mean that you're having things that are dirty or contaminated. Often it happens simply because you're eating things that your body's not used to. So when I first moved here, it happened to me on a regular basis, perhaps not to the extent of having Moctezuma's revenge in full force, but I definitely had rumbly tummy, stomach aches, and all that sort of stuff. I've been here now for 3.5 years, living on and off in Mexico City, traveling around a ton in Mexico, and the answer to the question about how I avoid getting sick is that I don't. To be completely honest with you, I was sick just a week and a half ago. Before I went on my trip to Monterrey, I was in such a bad place. Like, I was really sick. I don't know if it was food poisoning or I ate something and it just didn't agree with me, a different type of bacteria. Again, something perhaps that wasn't fully cooked, I don't know. What I know is that for over a week, I was just using the bathroom a lot. So without getting too deep into the reasons and the things that happen, we all understand what happens when you get Moctezuma's revenge. But I want to talk a little bit about how you can avoid it on your trip here. How you can avoid it while you're here, and what happens if you do get it, which is possible, especially if you're traveling here for an extended period of time and you plan on leaving resort areas and all that sort of stuff. So my little collection of goodies, but for truly, literally silent all day. Business. So let's start first with a few tips for avoiding it if possible. Obviously, don't drink the tap water in Mexico. It's in some places said to be safe to drink. However, it's not the water is not the problem. The pipes are often the problem, or the tanks are the problem. They're not sanitary. They're old. There's a lot of metal. There's a lot of issues. So your best bet, if you haven't grown up here, is to stick to bottled water or get yourself a filter water bottle like a Life Straw or a Grail, Grayl. You can get them on Amazon. They're not super cheap, usually about $40 to $50. However, the filters last for a very long time. I've been using my, well, this is just the bottom of it, but my Life Straw bottle. The filter on that lasted just over a year with heavy usage. I mean, we were using it every single day. So the filters are definitely worthwhile if you travel a lot to places where the drinking water isn't the best. The other thing to pay attention to is when you decide that you want to eat street food or any type of food, look for places that are super busy. Also, something that I don't think people talk about enough is that when you first arrive in Mexico, you should be like easing yourself in. The first meal that you have shouldn't be like carnitas tacos. Like, that is not the best place to start your meal. Barbacoa, birria, all these really heavy meats that often are quite greasy, quite oily. That's not where you want to start your vacation. I highly recommend sticking to smaller restaurants, ordering lighter meats, sticking to things that your body is already used to, that you eat back home, and slowly introducing at each meal something a little bit different. If you don't eat a ton of spicy food, that's something to pay attention to. Even if you like spicy food and you don't eat it very often at home, if suddenly you start having all these salsas in Mexico, you're gonna be feeling the grumble. I promise you. Other things to pay attention to when you start eating around the city, just like I said, going to places that are busy. top class restaurants aren't necessarily gonna protect you. I've had plenty of friends who've come here and gone to places that are highly recommended, that are quite expensive, and they themselves have gotten food poisoning. So really, like, to 100% avoid it, I can't make you any promises, and I can't tell you the exact recipe. The exact recipe would be to stay home. If you don't want to get sick and your biggest concern in all the world is like that you might have to poop, like, don't travel. Because it's an inevitability of traveling. I've been traveling for 10 years, living in other countries, in Asia and in Oceania and in Mexico and in South America, and I can tell you that every time you go to a new place, your body is experiencing new bacterias, and sometimes it wants to get rid of them. So if it happens, there are so many ways to nip it in the bud straight away. I highly recommend getting some electrolyte drinks. I'll show you what they look like. I actually buy these just to drink like on a hot day because they're so good. You can find them in OXXO, 7-Eleven. Most pharmacies carry a budget version of this. It's called Electrolyte. They come in tons of flavors. The coconut flavor is really good. Also the orange flavor is very good. It's a great way to stay hydrated when you're especially in a hot place. If you're at the beach or something and you start getting stomach problems, you definitely want to make sure that hydration is a massive priority. The other thing is head to the pharmacy. I'll list a couple of the most popular pharmacies around the country that you'll find, but they're pretty obvious. I mean, it's pharmacy, pharmacia. So just look for one of those. Every small town, every big city has a pharmacy. Sometimes there's a doctor, but you really don't need a doctor. You can go straight in to the counter and tell them that you ask them for Imodium, which you can buy here, Pepto-Bismol, which you can also buy here, or there's another option which I've seen a lot and also have, which is similar, I'm pretty sure, to Imodium with slightly different drugs, called Treda. But they all work. Obviously, do not take 3 of them. You only need to take 1. It's definitely not recommended that you mix these things. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. Do not take medical advice from me. Listen to the pharmacist. They will tell you exactly how to take it. Often in beach towns and touristy areas around Mexico, the pharmacist, at least one person in the shop, will speak a little bit of English, so if you're not sure, otherwise Google Translate's great. And yeah, they're the people to listen to, but you should only need 1 of these things to help you out. But yeah, so many of the things that are available in the US or Canada or the UK when you're not feeling well like this are available here. So if you wanted to use something that you're familiar with, I almost always use Pepto-Bismol first. For me, it's the fastest acting. It helps with all the sort of gurgly stomach as well as the other things that are happening. So for me, it's my first port of call whenever I get a stomach ache. Sometimes that may not be enough, and I take that for about 2 days, and if I still am having Moctezuma's Revenge after 2 days, I go to Imodium. The Treda is very helpful. I used one in Merida like this past summer when I was there. I got really sick, and I went to the pharmacy and I asked for Imodium, and she gave me something else because that's what they had at that particular pharmacy. And this was actually more like a Pepto-Bismol because it was made with a type of clay, and the clay collects the bacteria in your gut and pulls it out when you go. So it's not just stopping you up, it's also getting rid of the bad bacteria. The final thing that I will mention that I think is super important both before you travel and after you have Moctezuma's Revenge is that you get yourself some probiotics. All of these things sort of clear out your gut. They mess with the bacteria, the good bacteria inside your stomach and your intestines, and you want to make sure that that's balanced. So a great way to stay healthy before your trip is to make sure you're taking some probiotics, or you're eating fermented foods like sauerkraut or kimchi or kefir or what's the drink? Kombucha. These are all great things for the gut bacteria in your body. They keep you healthy and they keep you from getting these sort of problems. Okay, great talk. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I knew it would be a fun video to make, and I hope that you had a little giggle every time I tried to figure out what word to say instead of poop. So great. As always, I will see you next time. Bye.